Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network, a division of the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network. The following program broadcast is an original creation by the broadcast entity. Discussion within the following broadcast should be used for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice or consultation. Before considering application of any broadcast content in the following program, please consult your healthcare provider. If you feel you are having a medical emergency, please contact your local health services for immediate assistance. MS&Me Media and the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network do not guarantee or warrant the accuracy of information in the broadcast to follow. The Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network provisions broadcast services to program hosts. Information discussed in the broadcast does not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or goals of the network and are solely those of the show broadcast host. Should you wish to host a broadcast, please visit our website at msmemedia.com and submit a request to become a program host. We thank you for listening to the MS&Me Radio Network. Enjoy the show.
Hello, welcome to the 5th episode of A Couple Takes on MS on MS&Me Radio Network. This is Dan Digman.
And I'm Jennifer Digman.
And thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight's topic is, come on, get happy.
Ask yourself, are you happy? I mean, really think about that, because that's what we're going to talk about. Some different tips to increase your happiness. But first off, Dan would like to thank a very special person.
Well, I want to thank the Blue Giraffe Kid for composing the theme music for our show. A Couple Takes on MS, just a little background on it. Jennifer and I both have multiple sclerosis.
And we've been living with the disease almost 20 years, each of us. And so happiness is something that has surrounded us and sometimes evaded us. And it's just an interesting subject. In fact, I was at Weight Watchers last weekend, and we even talked about happiness there. Because happiness will make the quality of your life better. And you'll make better choices and hopefully have better health with your diet and exercise. And you'll feel more energy and increase the quality of life. But more than that, we just want to talk about some neuroscience data.
Well, I think that's always a question too, is like with happiness, when you're living with a chronic disease like multiple sclerosis, and sometimes I think whether or not you have MS, I think people have a hard time being happy all the time, and throw progressive illness on top of that.
And you've got a perfect storm that doesn't include happiness.
And you talked about like what you were discussing in Weight Watchers, but it was almost like the timing of things, because you received an article from a friend of yours.
Yeah, my good friend Angel, one of my dear sweet friends from college, recently sent me an article on Facebook from a UCLA neuroscientist named Alex Korb, and he shared some insights from his new book about the upward spiral of happiness. And I just wanted to share with you some of the tips he, through Angel's Facebook post, shared with me.
And I found it interesting because I read some of the summary from the article about the upward spiral from Alex Korb, and there are actually 4 insights to help us with our happiness. And just to set things up, those 4 insights are: ask yourself, what are you grateful for? Label the negative feelings. And number 3, make your decision. And number 4, touch people in inappropriate ways.
Yes, in appropriate ways.
In appropriate ways.
Yeah, say that clearly, because otherwise it sounds just not good.
You sound like inappropriate ways.
Yeah, not good. But, so Dan, I guess, what are you grateful for?
I'm grateful for everything. I think that, it's the gratitude that makes us makes us better, makes us think of things, makes us happy. I think that it's always looking at the positive, and I think maybe it's being more optimistic than pessimistic. Maybe, I mean, what I'm grateful for you.
And likewise, I'm grateful for you. And just to be perfectly honest, I'm not always grateful. And I'm not always, I mean, I have multiple sclerosis, and I've shared with you in the past that I'm in a wheelchair, and my MS is quite progressive. And so it's hard to be grateful and to have gratitude. And sometimes I'm a little frustrated that you tend to have a more positive attitude.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking.
Oh, I know. And she gets really, really upset. I think sometimes I have to, I don't want to say get negative and angry, but I try to squelch my happiness and gratefulness. I think, but really, it's like, what are you grateful for? And I think it's easy to say, oh, I'm not grateful for anything. But isn't it something with even just the searching for the gratitude?
That is, as Corb has talked about in his book, that searching for things to be grateful for can even boost your happiness that much more. The act of looking for what you're happy about can increase your happiness, and that seems kind of like a win-win, because I know in moments when I'm not happy, there's nothing to be grateful for, but searching can help boost my mood.
And I think it is just like, we think about multiple sclerosis and think about all of the side effects, all the impacts that this disease can bring. And it's just like, think of the negative things, but I'm grateful that I can walk today. I'm grateful that I can see. I mean, you as the listener, I mean, to be grateful that, hopefully grateful that you can hear us speak and share our perspectives. And it's all about the gratitude and finding that.
And so if you can't do that, because let's be honest, we all have those days where you just can't think of anything to be grateful for. It's also really good to know that you're having a negative feelings and negative days, but to label those negative feelings.
And I think that is the second thing that Alex Korb had pointed out, is to label your negative feelings, and that helps you advance to get to that level of happiness.
And I don't know if there's any science behind this, but if you ever see a baby or a child get really upset, and I think it's because they don't have the words, they can't say what they're mad about, and they're frustrated, and they just can't vocalize it other than screaming and crying. They can't verbalize it. That was the word I was looking for. But if you know, when you're really like having one of those days, and you can say, I'm frustrated because I can't tie my shoes, or I'm frustrated because I keep getting food on my shirt trying to feed myself. Just to know why you're upset. Are you angry? Are you frustrated? Are you sad? Just to label those emotions, I think that's very powerful.
I think, when we talk about this, I was telling Jennifer, it's like, when labeling the negative feelings, I labeled, with all due respect to our listeners out on the East Coast, but I labeled my negative feelings was the New York Mets. And I think I hated the New York Mets because of what happened in the 1986 World Series. Because obviously it wasn't Bill Buckner's fault; it was the Mets. And so I was disappointed that happened. That the Red Sox lost the series, and I couldn't hate the Red Sox, so I had to hate the Mets. So I labeled my negative feelings as the New York Mets. I mean, over time heals all wounds, and I like the Mets. I respect the Mets now.
I think that's fair to say. And as if you haven't noticed in our first 5 shows, Dan's an awfully big sports fan, so a lot of his MS comes back to some sort of sports analogy or some sort of competition, and that really helps him with his MS, I think.
Well, and I think then how does that, when it's easy for us to talk then about babies crying and about the New York Mets and the demise of the '86 Red Sox, but what about in the level and talking about multiple sclerosis? I mean, what are the negative feelings?
Well, I think when you feel like you don't have power, I've noticed that is, just if you can't control, and maybe you need to reframe that. Sure, I don't walk and I don't drive anymore, but I control my disease because I go every 6 months and I get an infusion. Or Dan, I take my baclofen every few hours just to say I still have control of the disease. Take that MS. And I think that really helps. What about you? Would you agree?
I do. I think that, excuse me, when we're labeling the negative feelings, it's the anger, it's the frustration. It's like my hands go numb, and I'm like at work, and I get very angry. I mean, thank God I have the speak to text, the voice recognition software as I'm writing my stories and everything. But it's frustration, and I think that it's easy then to just blame the work assignment, or you blame the job, blame this, oh I hate this, I hate that. But it's labeling, it's really my anger because I no longer have feeling in my fingers. And so it's just a matter of once that's labeled, I mean, according to the research that Corb presented, it's like there's some sense of relief that you no longer feel. I mean, obviously you're still angry, but the angst that's there.
You've taken some of the power back just in the simple act of saying, I'm angry, I'm frustrated. That is important to prove to yourself that you still have the power. And another thing, and the third thing that Corb talks about that's really important with happiness is making a decision.
And I think that by making, well, I don't think Corbett says, but it's like in making that decision, you have some relief that it's like you're no longer tormented. So it's like when you're thinking about, like what kind of disease modifying drug you want to take, or whether to take a medication at all. It's that wrestling with it. And I think what really comforted me is just when I read about it doesn't have to be perfect, and that's my problem. Is I'm a perfectionist, and so
that adds a lot of stress to your life and to the life of the wife. I'm sorry, I was like getting tongue tied there, but just your stress when you're stressed out. And I don't know if any of our listeners feel that way, but the stress trickles down to your caregiver or your spouse. So making a decision helps you to not be as stressed, just knowing that you decided on something.
And what does that do for you? I mean, what kind of decisions have you made that have like relieved your stress, or you stuck with it and moved forward?
Well, like Weight Watchers, I mean, I decided that I needed to get serious and work on some of my weight. I know that it will help myself, make transfers easier for my caregiver. And so that helped me. And then I decided to ask the doctor about some physical therapy because I was weaker and I needed some help trying to regain strength. So making that decision made me feel better.
And you didn't have to second guess or lose sleep over because you were waffling back and forth between should I do this, should I do that?
Yeah.
And it's like one of we talked about that done is better than perfect, and I think that that's something that really pushes you through. That it's like this is this decision that you make, and then they talking about how it like gets rid of the uncertainties and
One of the words that we commonly use is empowerment. You know, you feel like the disease is kind of taken, maybe you don't feel the same way, but I feel like the disease has taken away some of my power. And when I make a decision, I feel more empowered. Like, look at me, I still have a voice and a choice. I really am rhyming a lot tonight. Wife and life, voice and choice. Dr. Seuss sort of day. Sorry, it's a little late. I'm punchy.
well, and that's something that in terms of making your decision, it's like then what decision you make, more often than not, it's like really something you decide things that you like. And I think that's something that Korb says. He said that we don't just choose the things we like, we also like the things we choose. And I think that something that and now I'll get all like hallmarky and romantic, but it's like, you know, when Jennifer and I were dating, and it's like just waffling, you know, when you're put with that decision. I mean, we both have MS, and you're just saying, is this the best thing? You know, because you know what could happen in the course of things. And it's like, you know, I made that choice. I made that decision. And I mean, you weigh the pros and the cons, but it's just like I made that decision, and you move forward with it. And you know, there's things that you don't question. But I chose the thing that I liked, and I liked the thing that I chose, and here she
vice
is.
versa. And I made that decision, and it was scary. I mean, choices and deciding those, it's scary, even as a grown up, just to decide to take that leap of faith sometimes is a little scary, but it's better and less stressful to make your choice, to make your decision than vacillating. I don't know what to do. Should I do this or should I do that? Just trust yourself. And as Dan said, it's always true that done is better than perfect. Just to have made a choice, and that really will give you some happiness and some comfort, knowing that you're not waiting for someone else or something else. You've made your decision.
And I think it's like moving forward, because not every decision you make is going to be perfect, and there will be pitfalls. I think the big thing from that point, if things don't go the way you were hoping, or go worse than you expected, don't beat yourself up and say, oh, I shouldn't have done it this way, I should have known better. It's like, and I think Jennifer uses the analogy, you know, the windshield's bigger than the rear view mirror, so it's always look forward and don't look back and say, oh, I should have done something different. Because
but if you do, you're human, because I think we all know that sometimes it is like a loop where you keep looking back. And that's why you need someone to help push you forward sometimes. And even if you feel alone, there are so many communities out there of places where you can go and just get some encouragement, which leads to the next thing, the fourth and final tip Corb had to increase your happiness.
it's to touch people, and it's not going out and touching people at random, but it's that physical contact with another human being, in terms of even as simple as shaking a hand or
Patting on the back, just that contact, that human interaction really helps you. And it doesn't have to be, yes, it's really good to hug someone, but if you can't do that, just that interaction, I imagine, is really powerful. We talked about MS Buddy a few weeks ago, that app on your phone where you can speak with other people that have multiple sclerosis. Not actually speak with, but you can type and use your app on your phone to interact with others in the MS community. And that is like a virtual way to touch someone, because you can have those conversations. or the Facebook community, or, Angel lives in Texas, my friend that sent us this post, and I can still communicate with her, and we graduated 20 years ago because I can still contact her through the internet, and that makes me feel close to her. And I'm sure, with Dan's family living out of the state, that virtual contact or over the telephone, that helps bridge the distance.
It bridges the distance, and it makes you feel closer and connected. But it's like, but I think that's where we talk about MS can be an isolating disease, and how it's easy to shut ourselves off from other people in the world. But it's like then a question of just getting out there. I know that when I help with communion at church, and I remember the pastor talked like when you give the bread, just holding your hand in their hand, to have that physical contact. I mean, just to where there's that wholeness. And I think that absolutely. And if you can hug people, I love you see that you've seen those Facebook videos and stuff where somebody's just standing there like giving away free hugs. But just think how good that feels for anybody, and just where you feel that closeness, even like
Hugging a stranger. I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen those free hugs things, free hug giveaways. And that is important, that closeness that you share with another person. And that's why, it's something that we all need. We all crave that human contact.
And I think that's just where what we can do as people. I mean, it's a matter of getting out there, being in the public, or having people over. I mean, just to maintain that contact,
that closeness with other people. And I think that Alex Korb's book really, really means something, in the claiming and refocusing and realizing what things will help make you happier. And just 4 little tips will make such a big difference.
I mean, so I guess the question is, ask yourself and the listening audience and stuff, are you happy, and what makes you happy? How do you find that happiness? And so I'll throw it at Jennifer. Are you happy?
I'm happy, but I also am frustrated, and I think
I'm happily frustrated.
Well, I'm happy, but I have those moments where I'm frustrated or I'm sad, and to label and to know that makes you feel more in control. But I'm happy because there's beautiful sky overhead, or I'm happy because, I got to see the eclipse a few weeks ago, and a silly puppy video will always make me happy. So those things are happy, and they help me. What about yourself, Dan? Are you happy?
It's like I'm happy when I'm not tired. I mean, what emotion? What emotion sets us apart, or what do we drives us every day? And I think it's that constant quest for happiness, and I think that's where it can come in unexpected places, and I think it's just being in that never-ending pursuit for that happiness. I think,
and finding it. The happiness will meet you where you are. If you are not looking and not appreciating the gifts that you have, then maybe you need to stop and slow your life down and just appreciate the good things you have, which is something you would tell me.
It is. Well, and it's also something is like the first tip that Corb gave us, is in terms of asking yourself, what am I grateful for? And I think that it's finding everything that's good in life, because I think it's really, it can be easy to find the negatives and everything, but it's the positives, and the positives that's even more simple. I mean, I think like I'm doing fine today, and if I'm complaining, well, then I think, well, what about the times, the days when it just hits me that I get sick, and then everything goes.
And what you wouldn't have given, if you do worsen or if you get sick. So appreciate what you have today.
It's like real. It's like, if I'm running late for work and I'm crabby about work and I have all this stuff to do, blah blah blah, and you get out and say I had a flat tire. Well, then all of a sudden, what I wouldn't have given to get to work on everything, but now I have to deal with this flat tire and go to the auto shop and get that fixed. It's just appreciating that, okay, well, at least it's there. I mean, we could be running late for something, and as I remember the MS walk, and I'm thinking, well, we're late, but boy, at least it's not raining today. It's just like always finding the good in things.
And we've been married for almost 12 years, and that's still something that I'm working to appreciate. And surrounding yourself with positive people will help make you more positive, as is evidence in me being married today, and I'm trying to pick up more of your tips.
And you energize me. And so, in short, I mean, in terms of finding happiness, and this is all based in science. There's scientific research and studies that shows this in terms of the chemicals that go off in your brain and everything. The 4 tips, insights to happiness per Alex Korb in the book The Upward Spiral. The first tip, ask yourself, what am I grateful for? The second, label your negative feelings.
The third is to make a decision. And the fourth is to touch people, but not in a bad way, just to increase that contact and human contact.
And so we want to thank you all again for spending some time with us today to hear a couple takes on MS here on the MS&Me Radio Network. This is Dan Digman.
This is Jennifer Digman.
And we really appreciate you checking us out.
And if you would like to reach out to us on Twitter, our handle is DanJenDig.
You can find us on Facebook or visit us on our blog at danandjenniferdigman.com. And just seriously, reach out to us. Let us know, what topics do you want us to talk about? What are you thinking about in terms of where you're at with your disease and moving forward? We say a couple takes on MS because I have relapsing remitting MS.
And I have secondary progressive.
And so thank you again, and we wish you the best, and we'll check in with you next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.